Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to Anime King 2. And today I'm going to be giving you part 25 of What If Naruto Pushed Himself to His Limit. Remember to get this one to 300 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also, stay in tune because later on I'm going to be posting a new episode of What If Naruto was born in the Uzumaki clan. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you guys enjoy. And after that, I'm going to be posting a new episode of What If Naruto was raised by the Hyuga clan. So stay tuned for that as well, guys. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you're hearing my voice and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 2, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying talking back to all of you. So without further ado, what do you say we begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last spot we left off, Naruto was still worried about Jiraiya, as he was standing outside, as Konan was there, along with Shizune. The both of them were in as well. It took a while, but Tsunade came out of the operating room. As Naruto kept bombarding her with questions, she raised her hand for him to stop, as she told them that he will be fine, after telling them about his savage injuries. If it was any time later, he would have probably died. But she placed him into an induced coma so that he could rest. And with that, the two went to Tsunade's office, as Tsunade wanted to know who Konan was and what was going on. After a long sigh, Naruto decided to tell her everything. Tsunade was not so up with their relationship, seeing that Konan was much older than Naruto. She only respected me to be with him because she saw how much she loved him, but she did not know about Konan that much. After telling Tsunade what Nagato did, so if he died he could pass on the Rinnegan to her. Even though she should be 40 years old, her body was 20 years old after what Nagato did, just to make her prep so if he died anytime soon, she could get the Rinnegan and continue his plans. As Naruto then told her about Konan and she's been his spy for a long time now. After getting every information about the Akatsuki that Konan could give, Tsunade released her, and with that they went home. The both of them were too tired to go around the village and look at sights, as Naruto cooked for her. Lucky that he cooked enough because food came in, as she was exhausted and rather hungry. As Naruto gave her food as Fu scarfed it down, and then she noticed Konan, as Naruto told Fu that Konan was one of his wife, as Fu just nodded, as she thanked Naruto for food and left. Later that night, Naruto was thinking about the entire thing. If he had told Jiraiya sooner, probably things have changed. Konan came in his room, as she started to talk to him, as she told him that it wasn't his fault. She realized that if she could die anytime, she would not die with any regrets, as she then started to kiss him and they got together. Some time passed as we go to Kumo. The village was under attack. Nagato with his pads had killed all of the barrier patrol guards as they walked into the village, using the summoning pain to reverse summon all of them in the village. As the attack started, as Darui, see, all of them went on defensive. The Raikage break through his window to find the enemy and crush him. The giant dog was tearing through the village as many ninja came together. They formed a lightning jutsu which all of them poured their power into. It was a massive lightning dragon that teared through the sky and smashed into the dog, incinerating everything around. As the others released a sigh of relief, but then they saw another massive poof. This time, it was a massive orange and black centipede that was destroying the village now. They had to find the summoner and end the person alive. So yeah guys, that was basically the last we left off. You guys can switch across the place and check it out for yourself. So, what do you say we begin this new episode? The Raikage robes swished behind him as he ran through the ruined streets of Kumo. His teeth was gritting, his fists were clenching. He could barely control his rage. Everywhere he looked, he saw death and destruction. Buildings turned into rubble, bodies lay where they were killed, blood everywhere. But that wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing about this destruction and chaos, most of the people that died were civilians, men, women, children, who did not even know how to fight. Whoever was attacking the village did so without regardless of innocence, and that pissed him off to no end. A loved this village. He may not show it, but the village meant everything to him, even more than his own life. There was nothing that he wouldn't do for his village. If it meant protecting his village, he would do anything to keep it safe. That is why he allied himself with Konoha in the first place. When he learned from his spies that Minato's son has become the new Yellow Flash, he knew that he had to do something to keep the man from becoming a threat to his village. At first he thought about assassinating Naruto, but he didn't realize how poorly that would work out. Naruto has mastered his father's jutsu, one that even allowed him to surpass him in speed. He had shown that by decimating a group of nearly 5,000 enemy shinobis. To top it off, the boy was traveling with Jiraiya. He had a lot of faith in his ninjas, but he knew if he sent them there, it would only be a mass suicide. He then heard about the vain attempt of the stone trying to kill the boy, and he didn't change. So, if he couldn't kill him, he would ally with him, and that is why the alliance between Kumo and Konoha were formed. Of course, none of that mattered now. His village was in ruins, and the one that did it was standing right in front of him. He stopped and studied the man who just appeared in front of him. The man's face seemed dull, without any emotions. Like a corpse, he was of decent height, a bit taller than average. He had spiky hair, a lot of piercings, and ripple pattern eyes. The Raikage has never seen these eyes before, but he heard the legends of the Rinnegan. "You're the Akatsuki scum who attacked my village. And you're the fourth Raikage of Kumo. It's an honor to meet you," the man said. "Now tell me, where can I find the Akatsuki Jinjulike?" "Like I will tell you that," the Raikage shouted. The Raikage encased his entire body in lightning. Blue currents of shock blowing up all around him. He then disappeared a burst of speed, tearing through the ground as he moved, appearing right in front of the man. "Iron Claw," he said. But then something weird happened. One minute he was going to grab the man's face, and then the next he was lying in the wall. Sitting up as he pulled his back out of the wall. The man didn't even move a spot. What the hell just hit him? What happened? As the Raikage was confused as hell, A picked himself up as he got to his feet. "Prepare yourself, because I won't give you another opportunity to do what you just did." As he charged up his lightning armor, he had a feeling that he needed to go all out from the beginning if he was going to win. Then again, what should he expect from someone who has the Rinnegan? Meanwhile, C was sent flying back by a kick. One of the men wielding the Rinnegan walked up to him and grabbed him by his head as he was forced down to his knees. He then found himself incapable of moving. No matter how hard he struggled or his body turned to attack this man, he just couldn't. He was just completely frozen. "Where is the Jinjulike for the Akatsuki?" the man asked. C's mind screamed at him for him to move, but he just couldn't. And no matter what, he will never betray his leader. He was one of the fourth most trusted and loyal shinobi. Too bad for him the human path did not need to hear the voice from his mouth. "I see," said the human path. "So the Akatsuki Jinjulike is currently residing in a place called Hanrokyo." C eyes wide in shock and fear as he realized the man just read his mind. But how was this ability granted to him by the Rinnegan? The dojutsu was legendary, said it had belonged to the Sage of Six Paths. There is no telling what exactly it could do. But those questions and everything else fled from C's mind when the human path ripped his hand away, pulling C's soul out, as C's body dropped to the ground lifeless. Meanwhile, the Raikage flashed in front of Pain as he held his arm up ready to strike Pain a lariat. Just before the attack could touch Pain though, the Raikage found himself being sailed backwards. This time it was more powerful, the force. The last time he felt like he was just pushed back, but now he felt like he was recovering from one of Lady Tsunade's punches. Just because of his lightning armor protecting him, he felt like he was receiving a giant's fist all over his body as he was blasting through several buildings before managing to recover himself. as he had to channel chakra into his feet to stop his backward momentum. Standing to his full height, he frowned as he tried to figure out what the hell just happened. The man in front of him hadn't even moved an inch, and somehow he was the one that was blasted away. Unfortunately, A has never really been a big thinker. He was the kind of guy that relied mostly on his combat and his instincts, which was sad because right now he couldn't make heads or tails of what just happened. All he knew is that this guy had some kind of jutsu to push him away that had the same strength of Senju Tsunade, and he didn't even need to lift a finger to do it. But naturally, the Raikage decided to charge again. He wanted to wipe that blank look off the idiot's face, but he wasn't stupid enough to charge right in from the front. As he moved off with tremendous speed, flashing behind his opponent, his hand was ready to grip the back of his head. As he was analyzing him carefully, ready to see what did he do. Once again it happened. Just before he grabbed the man's head, the man seemed to have sensed the attack and ducked under it, and turned to face him. This time Pain held out both hands towards him, and he was yet again smashed by an incredible force that sent him sailing away. But this time he would go too far, as he pushed his lightning armor, breaking the momentum and pushing back towards Pain. As he moved off so fast that the Pain couldn't even blink an eye. There would be no way the bastard could stop him now, as the resistance of his jutsu was gone. But the moment he reached him, he felt something sharp in his stomach, as he saw that there was a strange saw from another one of these things. It had 3 faces. It had a large bald head. It looked like it was a machine. The Raikage pulled the thing right out of him with a mighty roar. He swung around his fist as he smashed it into him. Even though it was a single attack, the robot Pain found himself completely destroyed by a fist to the chest. His body exploded into thousands of shards and gizmos, showing that he was a robotic doll. His head was then skidded over towards Tendo Pain, who had moved away from the attack. That was a deadly attack, said Tendo, as he saw the Raikage huffing and puffing. I dare say that would have killed me if it hit me. It was supposed to kill you, you bastard, said the Raikage, as he growled in frustration and anger. He was just going to show this bastard why he shouldn't attack his village when that guy suddenly showed up. And just who the hell was that guy anyways? Some kind of robotic puppet? These Akatsuki freaks were the weirdest bunch that he has ever seen. I am not one to be defeated as easy as that, but I do applaud you for your effort. Before he could do anything, another one appeared right in front of him. He looked more pudgy than the other ones, as he had the same hair and the eyes. What the hell? He had met not only 1, not 2, but 3 people who had the Rinnegan. What the hell is going on? In his surprise, he could not react in time when the Predapat grabbed onto him and started to drain his chakra. The cracking electricity could not maintain anymore as it faded away. But he was still a very strong man. After lifting weights so many times, his body was in physical toughness, as he was able to break the hold that Predapat had on him, as he smashed his head right into the Predapat's forehead, making him stumble backwards, as he made his hand in the shape of claw and grabbed the Predapat's face, as he lifted him up by the face and smashed him head first down into the gravel. Preda's head was literally crushed underneath the claw hand. Even without his lightning activated, he still had immense physical strength. Universal pull, he heard. Before he could even congratulate his killer or anything, he was pulled towards the Deva path. There was very little he could do to counter against it, as Tendo Pain had his hand outstretched and he was pulling him to him. Due to the force of the jutsu, he could not bring his hands up to do any simple jutsu, and his feet was not touching the ground. He could not stop himself, as he saw Pain pull out a black rod and pull back his hand to stab him. Pain was used to moving at high speeds, so he prepared himself. The second that he was in range, the lightning crackled around him. Thrusting out his hand, he grabbed the black rod and snapped it as he thrust out his other fist. The fist connected into Tendo's face. There was no other path to take the attack this time. His body was thrown back violently, tearing through the earth like a large trench before smashing through a couple of buildings. As the buildings collapsed in on themselves, but Pain still traveled further and further. The Raikage was sure that would put an end to him. He had struck out with everything he had in that attack. Not even someone of Tsunade's strength would have survived a hit like that without being liquidized. Nodding to himself, he decided to find the other enemies. He then felt his chakra being sucked away from him again as he looked down to see Path grabbing onto his leg. His lightning aura went out as he no longer had chakra to sustain it. He was still alive, but how? He was sure that he killed the bastard. His face was still caving when he crushed it. The Raikage was about to pull his leg out when he felt an unimaginable pain right through his stomach. He blinked several times as he stared on the bloody tip of that tail, as he turned to shock to see the mechanical enemy that he destroyed a while ago. 3 faces grinning back at him. What the hell? He collapsed down to his knees. He tried to stand, but the chakra being drained from him, leaving him incredibly weakened. What an amazing strong attack he heard. He looked up to see Tendo Pain walking back towards him. You truly live up to your title, Raikage. An attack of that would have killed most people. The Raikage was beyond shock because there was no damage done to him. How are you still alive? A pointless question. There is no need to answer it when you're going to be dead soon. He tried to stand, but he was too weak and his vision started to blur. You fought valiantly, but in the end, it was not enough. You now, no pain, but I cannot let someone as dangerous as you live. As Tendo drive a black rod right through his throat. The Raikage coughed up blood before his body fall over. Pain looked at the body of the Raikage. He then raised his head and looked at the rest of the village. There was no need to stay here anymore. He had the location of the Hatsubi Jinjulike. All that was left to do was to use his village as an example of those who dare to defy God. As he descended from the ground, going up into the sky, from the bird eye view he could see how many damage that he has caused. More than half of the village was nearly destroyed, but it did not matter. All around the village, the other pain started to retreat, as everyone was wondering what was going on. Were they running? As most of the people then looked up to see someone float in the sky. Kumo will be reduced to nothing after this was done. This village shall know pain. Almighty. Push, he said. Back at Konoha, Naruto stirred in his bed. As he slowly opened his eyes, a smile came on his face to see Konan as she was snuggling up in his side. As he ran his hand through her hair was much shorter than the other girls, so it wouldn't just lash out all over the bed. Instead, it was sticking out, as it made Naruto laugh, as he wondered if their children here would look like that. He shouldn't have thought of, while an appealing thought, children were not something they could afford right now, not with the Akatsuki around. And worse, not with that guy claiming to be Mother Uchiha on the loose. The last thing he wanted was for his wife and child to be used as a hostage. As Naruto smiled, call him sappy, but one of the best feelings was waking up to the woman that you love. After sex. Well, woman's in his case. Well, he can think about that later. He then leaned back his head as he felt her stir. As he looked down, as she slowly opened her eyes. Morning, he said. Good morning, Naruto, she said, as she leaned up to give him a kiss on the lips. How are you feeling, Naruto asked. She laid her head back on his shoulder. A little sore, she said, as she shivered a bit, as he trailed his fingers on her backs, as she felt goosebumps coming all over her, just by his touch. But a good, kind of sore, she said. I'm glad, he said. Last night, it was incredible. I'm glad we shared this moment together, she said. I feel much closer to you than before. Almost make you wish that we had done this earlier, said Naruto, which earned him a light smack to the chest. Joking, just joking, he said. Well, sort of anyways. We should probably take a shower and head down for some breakfast. On cue, his stomach rumbled. Oh, did I mention I was starving, he said. Konan giggled at his antics. She then stopped, realizing that she was giggling, as she looked to see Naruto with the amused smile on his face. You didn't hear anything, she said. Sure I didn't, he said. You didn't hear anything, she said. How about this, he said, as he rolled her over, as he was now on top of her. I'll pretend nothing happened if you give me a kiss. Alright then, that sounds like a fair deal, she said, as she puckered up, as he came down the kiss. Being the first time that they got together, Konan never knew that Naruto was such a wonderful lover, especially being in the bath. She had sat right between his legs, as he offered to give her a bath, cleaning her all over. By the time he was done, she felt like she wanted to get dirty again because he touched her in so much erotic spots and the way he moved his hand. Getting out of the shower, the both of them went to relax as Naruto with a clone to make breakfast. As the clone grumbled under his breath about lucky bastards. Yes, the original was a lucky bastard. We should probably get out there, Naruto said. My clone is making breakfast, and I really should introduce you to Yujiro. That's the one, the envoy, right? Said Konan. Yes, you never met her before. We got involved with each other after the Chunin exams, he said. She's currently eating breakfast now, so it would be the best time. Konan and Naruto made their way out of the room as they went to the kitchen as they found Yujiro at the table, eating an omelette with a side bowl of fruit. As soon as they entered, Yujiro looked up and gave a slightly mysterious, strange smile. The next time you two get up to your antics, you may want to apply a silencing seal to the wall, or the floor, the ceiling, the windows, just for good measure, she said. You heard that? Naruto said, as Konan blushed, as Yujiro nodded. I heard it all the way from the basement, she said. You must be pretty amazing to make her scream that loudly. As she was a bit jealous, Konan lowered her head as her face was too red to look up. As Naruto held her hand and brought her over to the table. After drawing a seat for her, Naruto walked over towards Yujiro. I think someone's jealous, he said, as he leaned down. But you know you shouldn't be, he said. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here waiting. She turned and looked at him before placing a kiss on his lips. As she breathed the kiss, thank you, she said. You never need to thank me for something like this, he said, as he went to get 2 other plates for him and Konan. As Naruto decided to get the introductions out of the way, Yujiro, this is Konan. She was a spy for me within the Akatsuki, and well, she's the reason why Gaara is still alive. Konan, this is Yujiro. She's one of the youngest envoys in history, and she's a sword junkie. Sword junkie, she said. She shook her head as she looked over towards Konan. So, welcome to the family, I guess. It's nice to officially meet you. Likewise, said Konan. Konan felt a bit weird knowing that this woman was also one of Naruto's lovers. It felt strange to share him with someone else. Naruto has told me a lot about you. Oh, he has he? Said Yujiro. And just what has he been saying about me? She asked, as she glanced at Naruto who was eating food. I don't think it's necessary for you to hear that, said Naruto. Oh, now I'm interested, she said. So, what has he been saying? Asked Yujiro as she looked at Konan. Konan looked at Naruto to see him waving his hands no. But Konan paid him no mind. He used to speak when he was younger that he was always protecting him, and that you were one of the most beautifulest women in the world. He really said that? Said Yujiro, as she blushed a bit, as she looked over to him, before looking away, as Konan nodded. He also mentioned that when he was younger, he wanted to marry you, and would constantly fight your boyfriend when he came over. It was a testament to her recovery, that Hayate's name no longer caused her any pain. But she did feel something in her heart hearing that name, but it didn't cause her pain. As she looked over to see Naruto, a smile came on her face. Yeah, he said that he will always beat up Hayate, and that he would become my boyfriend. But then he went to the academy and fell in love with that soccer girl. As she pouted, I felt like I was replaced. Come on, no one could replace you, Naruto said. The both of them turned towards him. I thought I should aim lower, cause clearly Hayate had an advantage over me. So you gave up? What happened to never giving up and never going back on your word? I didn't give up, said Naruto. I was simply waiting for a better opportunity to sweep you off your feet. And I thought that since Sakura was cute and she had a unique hair color, I thought that she would be good practice, until you finally realized that I was the man of your dreams. You mean the boy of my dreams, he said, as Naruto pouted. But it didn't work, seeing that you didn't get a date with Sakura, did you? Don't remind me, said Naruto. As Konan watched the two of them play, she smiled. You two seem to get along very well. I'm kind of jealous, she said. Well, it's just because I've known him for so long. Perhaps, said Konan. The both of them learn a bit more about each other as they get along fairly well, which Naruto was glad for. The last thing he wanted was for them to fight each other, like what happened when Mei and Yuchito first met. Nearing the end of their breakfast, the doorbell went off. As they went over, the person on the other hand was an envoy member with a lizard mask on his face. When he saw Naruto standing there, he gave off a salute. Namikaze-san, Hokage-sama's requested you in your office. Did she say what for? I am not knowing her reason, sir. As Naruto nodded, he then looked back at the two girls. Don't worry about us, Naruto. I'm off duty right now. I can use this time to show Konan around the village. As Naruto nodded a smile. Alright then, Lizard, lead the way. Meanwhile, at the office, Tsunade was drinking sake. As many things happened, she had tried to tell Naruto yes, she wanted to tell him that they were related, but the whole thing with Jiraiya, she couldn't, as he was still in a coma. Sasuke capturing everything, so she was put off from telling him anything. Now there was nothing left getting in her way. He was out of danger, and Sasuke was retrieved. Pain was a threat, but not one they could deal with right now. Even the paperwork was finished. She had the time to tell him, as she was really nervous. She didn't hear the knock on her door. Come in, she said. As he entered, you called Bachan, he said. Yeah, sit down, she said. As Naruto sat down in a chair in front of the desk. Alright, I'll just get to it. A while back we managed to find some information on your blood test that would likely cause some commotion if ever gets out. It also changed a good deal between us. Then what I have is a bloodliner to ask. Yes, said Tsunade, it's a bloodline. I believe it came from a combination of your Uzumaki blood and your father's blood. My old man, Naruto said. What does he have to do with this? Well, recent information has shed some light on things. Namikaze Minato was an orphan as far as anyone knew. There are no records in his files of his parents. But I believe that it was stricken from his files by Sarutobi sensei. It must be important for the old man to erase that information, Naruto said. It is. Alright, I'm not gonna beat around the bush, she said, as she drank some of her sake and put on the glass. Through the blood, we would have been able to find out who your grandparents and great-grandparents were, if we had their blood in the records. And we found information about your grandfather, on your father's side. You see, I discovered that your grandfather was my younger brother, Nawaki Senju. So that means your father was actually my nephew. That makes you my grandnephew. As Tsunade waited for the ball to drop, on his side, anger for leaving him alone for so long, not knowing, rage for how he was treated by the villagers. She expected him to shout at her and yell and scream about how she should have been there for him, and she could understand if he do so. But clearly she didn't know Naruto too well. You do understand something now, right? Said Naruto. What's that? She said. Well, you can no longer complain about me calling you Bachan. Tsunade blinked. What? Well, you can't get upset about me calling you Bachan anymore, since you are technically my Bachan. Naruto, I just told that we are close related, and all you have to say is that I can't complain about you calling me Bachan? So, said Naruto confused. I don't really see your point. This doesn't change anything. Doesn't change anything? Aren't you should be mad. You're related to me and I wasn't there for you. I have known about this for months, but I kept it from you because I was scared of what would happen. I still don't see the problem. As far as I know, you only find out after I returned to the village, so you didn't know before then. I'm not sure how I can blame you for you not being there for me when we didn't even know that we were family. So you're not mad at me, she asks. Of course not. Being upset at you for not knowing something is rather stupid. Why would I blame you for being ignorant? That would be like how the villagers blame me for what the Kyuubi did when I was younger. Why would I do that, he said. Thank you, she whispered. Trying not to let the tears fall from her eyes. Don't get all wishy-washy on me. Aren't you old hags supposed to be tough, he said. Naruto had to duck the empty state bottle and Tsunade threw at him. Watch it, brat, she said. I may let you get away with calling me Bachan from now on, but there is no way in hell that you will call me a whole hag, she said. As Naruto sighed, fine, he said. But I'm not getting something. How did Nawaki had a kid? Wasn't he supposed to be like 12 or something? 13, said Tsunade. And yes, he was too young to have a child. But Orochimaru was his sensei. And you believe that he had made taking samples of Nawaki at that time? Or sometime after, said Tsunade. I don't want to believe that he was experimenting that early on. But that is not out of the realm of possibility that he injected a woman with Nawaki seed and tried to observe her when she got pregnant. It also likely that she died at childbirth. There are no records of who Minato's mother was. She was likely a random civilian that Orochimaru selected for that very same reason. Less chance of people noticing her that way, especially in times of war. Makes sense, said Naruto. Are you really okay with this? Tsunade asks. I don't see why not. I mean, we're already pretty much family, right? Might as well make it official. She was about to say something, but her door was blasted open. One of her ninjas were huffing and puffing like he just ran a marathon. You better have a good reason for barging in like that. Ma'am, it's Kumo, he said. Akatsuki. The village was destroyed. As Naruto's eyes went wide along with Tsunade's. Time skip. Morning in Kiri came. As the sun rose over the entire village. As Yujito slowly opened her eyes. As a ray of sunlight hit her eyes. But she rolled over to her other side. She didn't have anything important to do right now. As she rolled over, her right hand came into contact with something. It was soft, round and squishy. Opening her eyes, the first thing she saw was a mass of red hair. It was spread all over the bed. The second thing she saw was the woman the hair belonged to. A beautiful woman with an amazing figure that rivaled hers. And a wonderful face that held such a beauty about it. Even when she was at rest, the woman looked alluring with her eyes closed. And her lips parted ever so slightly, just begging someone to plant a kiss on them. Yujito shook her head at such thoughts, but could not deny it had entered her mind. The last thing she noticed was her hand was on the woman's right breast. As she slowly removed her hand, "Do not wake me. You know you can leave it there if you want." She looked back at May's face to see that she was awake. As May was giving her a mysterious grin, she had that same look that Naruto had most of the time. "I didn't want to wake you," said Yujito, letting her hand come back down to rest on May's bosom. "I've been awake for a long while now. I didn't feel like getting up though." "I don't think that is something a Kage should say. People accuse you of being lazy." It was interesting for her to realize how she was at peace with the other woman. Maybe it was because the both of them had shared a sexual encounter when the both of them had sex with Naruto. Yes, that was probably the reason. Still, it was strange how involved the both of them were. "They can say whatever they want," said May, "but I don't really care. With Mizu at peace now, there is nothing to complain about." "That sounds like an excuse to me," said Yujito. Despite saying that, she moved closer to me as she used May's bosom as a pillow. "It is only an excuse when there's actual work to do," said May as she pulled Yujito closer. Cuddling with Yujito is different from cuddling with Naruto, but both of them are willing to content themselves with each other. "I can rest for a few more minutes." As a few seconds of silence went off. "So what do we have to do today?" asked Yujito. "Oh, there's just a few more formalities for us to go through to finalize the alliance between Kumo and Kiri. It shouldn't take more than an hour or two. Once everything is over, we will be both allies with Konoha and Kumo." "And the San?" asked Yujito. "Yes, and the San." Well, Kiri was not too involved with the San, seeing that they were a real distance away from each other, the desert and the water. Once this alliance is formulated, we will become the most powerful Shinobi Village alliance in the elemental nations. Yujito could not help but agree, an alliance between Konoha, Kiri, Kumo, and the San. "Do we know what the Hidden Stone have to say about this?" asked Yujito. "No," said May. "They have been silent since several of the ninja went rogue and used Koyoki as a hostage to try and kill Naruto. They cannot make any move right now." Yujito did not say anything. She never really had to worry about politics like this before. It was then that something flashed in the room in front of them. As they saw that it was Naruto, the both of them were taken aback when they noticed that despite the situation, he wasn't smiling. He actually had a sad look on his face. May picked herself up as she untangled herself from Yujito. Despite her nudity, she still stood tall. Yujito also stood up before Naruto walked over as he pulled her into a hug. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." She did not know what is going on. What was he sorry about? What happened? She pushed him a bit so she could look at his face. As she saw that grave look on his face, "Naruto-kun, what's wrong?" "What's wrong?" she asked as Naruto looked at her. Moments later, breaking the news of Kumo's destruction was much harder. There was no preparing for that. That look on her face, it was something that he would remember for the rest of his life. Several hours has passed since then. May was off in a meeting with her council. As much as she would like to stay and help Naruto comfort her distraught sister wife, she couldn't neglect her duties as a Mizukage. As Naruto was left to hold Yujito, as she cried out her anguish and pain to the world, it was the only thing he could do in this situation. It left him feeling powerless. He should have tried to kill pain when he had a chance. Had he done that, Yujito wouldn't be feeling this way right now. It just brought up an unbridled rage and anger inside of him. As he was saddened, he didn't like to feel helpless, like he couldn't do anything. After crying out everything, Yujito had fallen asleep. Naruto's head was resting on the headboard of the bed. Her head was resting in his lap. It was about midday now, as he then heard the front door opening, as Mei walked into the room. She came over. "How is she?" she asked as she sat down. "I think the answer to that should be more than obvious," he said. "Right, foolish question," said Mei. She went up on the bed as she lifted up Yujito's legs softly and placed on her own. Her hands traveling slowly up and down as Yujito purred a bit. It was the only type of comfort that she could give her now. How did the council take this news, Naruto asked. "They're afraid. It seems like news has reached all around. To find out that one single person could wipe out the entire nation, one of the greatest, by himself." "Yeah," said Naruto. "Is something wrong?" Mei asked. "Not really, I just feel like this is my fault. If I had just stayed and tried to kill Pain when I had the chance. If I hadn't run when I confronted him in the hidden rain, then probably none of this would have ever happened. Yujito wouldn't be this way and Kumo would still be standing. But your sensei would have died," Mei pointed out. "I love Jiraiya like a father, but the life of one man isn't worth the thousands of people who are dead now thanks to Pain." It was a harsh, callous thing to say, especially coming from Naruto. But as a shinobi, both he and Mei knew how much sacrifices were necessary. How many people lost their mother, their father, their daughters, their son in that attack. Is my happiness worth the happiness of all those people who lost their loved ones? He looked back down at Yujito. Is it worth her happiness? Mei did not answer his question because she knew regardless of what she told him, he would try to blame himself. She tried another approach though. "Do you think you could have beaten him?" "I don't know," he said. "Maybe. Pain was able to beat Jiraiya sensei. My strength is comparable, but we never went all out in our spars. There is no telling which one of us is strongest between the two of us. Still, Pain was injured from his battle. I saw that at least one of his paths had been destroyed. I also know how they work, their weaknesses, their strength. All he likely know about me is my wind affinity, my use of the higher chain, and I can summon toads. I had all the advantage, yet I retreated." Mei didn't like this. That part of him was acting up again. He was blaming himself for everything, even though he could never known of this. Time skip. Naruto was jolted awake as Yujito stirred in his arms. He could not see her face, but he was sure it was not pleasant right now. "Yujito," he said. She lifted her head as Naruto looked at her. Her eyes were bloodshot and puffy from her tears. Her cheeks had tear streaks stained in them. There was even a little fluid running from her nose. "How are you feeling?" he said. "Awful," she said, as she buried her face into his chest, her arms wrapped around him tightly, like he was a lifeline. The two of them went silent for a long moment before she spoke. "I'm not dreaming, am I? Did this really happen? Is Kumo really destroyed?" "I'm sorry," Naruto said. He knew that his words meant nothing, but he couldn't help but apologize. It was his fault. Why Kumo was destroyed? Had he just done something back then, this wouldn't have happened. "I can't believe it's gone," she said. "Kumo was my home. I grew up there my entire life," she said. "The shinobis who I work with always treated me so kind. None of them. They didn't deserve to die," she said as she cried a bit. "No, they didn't," Naruto agreed. "I wish I could say something to help ease her pain, but this has never happened to me before. I've never lost so much in such a short amount of time. I can't imagine how you can feel right now. I wish I could do something for you," he said. "Just hold me," she said. "Just like this. Tell me that you will always be there for me. That you won't leave me." I promise," he said. He said, even though he knew this was one of the promises he should not make. But her state, she was so fragile. The mere fact that she was asking him to make this promise, when she knew that the life of shinobi was always short and violent. But it didn't matter right now. He wrapped his arm tightly around her. "I promise. I'll never leave you. I'll stay with you forever," he said. "And you know who I am with promise," he said. "If I make promises, you will never go back on your word. That's your ninja way." The both of them were a bit startled when they heard another voice. As Mei came over, she held the both of them as well in a hug. "I also promise to stay with you, Yujito," Mei said, as she kissed Yujito on the forehead. Yujito allowed her body to relax into the combined effort of Naruto and Mei. She was so tired. "Thank you," she said before falling asleep. The next day, the trio was outside of Kiri Gates waiting. They received a message last night from Tsunade that a response of San and Konoha Shinobi and Harinokuni Samurai will be coming to pick them up, as they were going to set out to Kumo. And so they stood there silently waiting as the sun rose. One of Naruto's arms wrapped around Yujito, as they did not separate even when they ate. She sat down on his lap. Even though she knew it was a crutch to rely on Naruto for strength, right now she needed help. It was just so hard. They then saw something coming towards them. It was a giant flying contraption. So that is Harinokuni knew Zeppelin, said May, intrigued and awed by the massive flying ships. Even Yujito looked up at the current flying vessels as they landed a distance away. I had heard that they were impressive to see, but I didn't expect them to be like this, said May. Harinokuni was always well known for their advanced technology, said Naruto. These were models after Dodos, smaller blimps that he created several years back. As they went over, two squads of Konoha and Sand Ninjas emerged from the floating ships. Naruto smiled when he saw who was there to greet them. Shikamaru, Sakura, Ino, Choji. Troublesome, this is so troublesome, said Shikamaru, as Ino elbowed him in the side. Anyways, we're not the only squad here, but we're in charge of this mission, he said, as he rubbed his side. We got several more squads, and one squad of Anvu from both Konoha and the Sand. As he looked over to Mari Kankuro, I didn't expect Gaara to send you too. Gaara actually wanted to come himself, but we convinced him otherwise. It took a lot of effort to convince him not to leave. It's probably a good thing that you did. With what happened, the Sand is probably the safest place for him right now. Yeah, seeing that Kumo just turned to a large smoking crater by... Ouch! Said Kankuro. What the hell was that for, sis? As he turned his head to see, Mei and Naruto glaring daggers at him, as Yujito had buried her head in Naruto's shoulder. I'm really sorry about that, he said. That was totally careless about me. It won't happen again. As he gulped, seeing those two ninjas glare down at him. As Kankuro saw Naruto calm down, he had a feeling that the only reason why Naruto didn't attack him was because of that blonde chick. But he was lucky. Naruto-kun, descending from the other blimp, was Koyoke. No one else knew but Naruto and the other wives that they were also married. As she ran past all of the samurais, as she rushed straight up towards Naruto and his group, Yuki said Naruto with a smile. Koyoki looked like she wanted to jump on him, but she stopped as she saw Yujito in his arms. How have you been? It's been about a month since we saw each other, Naruto said. Busy, she said. There's a lot of work involved running a country, you know. He did know. She complained to him a lot about it. I'm surprised you're here then. I may have used this as a excuse to take a small break, she said, as her samurais caught up to her. As she looked at Yujito, I want to lend whatever aid I could. We could use a hand action, Naruto said. Thank you. Before she could say anything, the captain of the samurai ran up to her. Koyoki Dano, he said, while we are allies here, I would request that you not run off like that again. She rolled her eyes. Oh, relax, Aizen. No one will attack me here, with 3 Kage-level shinobi, 2 squads of shinobis, and plus my group of samurais. It will be suicide. Nevertheless, I require that you cause more caution, he said. This is so troublesome, Shikamaru said. Look, I don't want to interrupt you guys. Actually, I do. The situation is troublesome enough without you guys quarreling. We should really get a move on. Don't be rude, Shikamaru said Ino. As she hit him again, he looked at her as he rubbed his side. He's right though, said Sakura. We really need to get moving. The more time we spend here, it's going to be harder for us to save people. The reminder that you were going to Kumo and was going to save people there. Yujito perked up. They're right, she said, as she stepped away from Naruto's comforting embrace to stand on her own. We really need to leave. As Naruto looked at her, she just gave him a warm smile. Alright then, Koyoki said, we should get a move on. Moments later, this is my personal flagship, said Koyoki, as they arrived at her personal chambers. I see, said Yujito. 2 of the samurais opened the door. Let's go, as she led her into the room. The inside was beautiful, with a purple decree. It had a large bed, a dresser, changing area blocked off by screens, and a mirror area. Why don't you sit there? I'm gonna go change to something more comfortable. As Koyoki went around the screen. Why did you ask me to meet you here? Asked Yujito. As after a while Koyoki came out, she was dressed in a light blue flannel pants and a long sleeve shirt. Well, we're both going to marry Naruto, and I hardly ever get to see you. I thought that we could get to talk and know each other. As she sat down, it was true they have not really talked in her that much. She had only met her at least 2 times, because most people didn't know about Koyoki and their relationship. Before Yujito could say anything else, she was pulled into a tight hug. I also wanted to know that I understand how you feel, said Koyoki. Yujito blinked. I remember when my uncle took over my father's throne, and I had to flee and leave everything behind. While my country was still there, I could never go back to it, because I knew he would kill me if I did. I remember how hard it was, knowing that I couldn't see my father again, knowing that I couldn't visit my country again. Naruto, try as he might, he cannot understand what it's like to lose everything you ever loved. But I do, and I know that sometimes you need a shoulder to cry on. I'm sure you feel like you already cry enough tears, but now is the best time to get everything out. Yujito, it started with sniffles, and then turned to small tears, before she started to cry everything out. As Koyuki held her tight, time skip, Pain watched, as Killer Bee's body dropped to the ground at thud. All the Bijou chakra sucked out of him. Man, that was a lot harder than it used to be, said Kisame. With only 4 of us left, it took twice the time, as usual. Deidara and Sasori, the zombie brothers, now Itachi and Konan. Maybe we should think about getting new members. Oh, new members sounds good. Right now, there are no qualifications. None of the current ninjas, except for Akagi, could stand up against a Bijou. That's too bad. Toby wanted to make some new friends. But guys, we'll be ending this episode right here. For the next part of this, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn the bell notifications to stay posted. But for now, I'm out of here. See you guys soon. Peace.